Hey, good evening to everyone in one of my online classes this semester. I'm Jim Korman, and I wanted to give a quick introduction to who I am and what maybe the course expectations are during the course this semester. Maybe give you a sense of hopefully comfort in knowing a little bit about me and also what the course framework is like. Um, First, a little bit background about me. I've been teaching at the Mount full time for 22 years. I'm the department chair of legal studies, political science, and history. Um, I love teaching at the Mount. I'm a community college graduate myself. I'll talk a little bit about that later. Um, but I feel like I have a great deal of empathy for what it's like to be a community college student. So hopefully we'll enjoy the process together. Um, I live in Brimfield, Massachusetts. If you're not familiar with it, it's sort of south central Massachusetts. It's just a little bit west of Sturbridge, Massachusetts, just over in Hampden County. I grew up in Springfield, Massachusetts, but for the past 30 years, I've lived roughly in the Sturbridge, um, Brimfield area. I have 7 kids, ages from 29 to 19, and my wife, who's also a practicing attorney as well. I have 2 dogs. Everyone wants to see the dogs. No one really wants to see me. They're over here. I don't know if you can see them with the lighting. One of them's turning over for you. That's Martha, who's about to put her paw in her mouth. She's a 7-year-old golden retriever, and then Bailey sitting next to her as her younger sister. They're not really siblings, but she's a 2.5-year-old golden doodle. We have 2 cats too. They're not going to be in the video because they're downstairs tonight. Um, I've been practicing law for 33 years now. I'm a graduate of Western New England Law School out in Springfield, where I grew up. I do only criminal defense work now. I still have close to a full-time practice in that area. I used to practice in a variety of areas of law: real estate, divorce, workers' compensation, personal injury, contract law, and criminal defense. But criminal defense is all I gravitate now too, because I need to narrow the practice because of being a full-time faculty member at Mount Community College. That consumes a great deal of time as well. Now about the course. So that's me a little bit. My hobbies. My hobbies are actually very much related to my career. My grandfather did it, my father did it, and I kind of inherited the passion for political history. And so I collect political memorabilia, mostly from the 1960s and prior, political buttons and pamphlets and sloganeering and things like that. I still have a passion about it. And it kind of, I think, is interrelated with the things I teach and talk about. So I guess everything's kind of intertwined. The course itself, and now you get to know me a little bit. Well, this part I want to make clear, as I'm a community college graduate, and I struggled the first attempt at success at a community college. I just got out of high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a plumber. My grandfather was a plumber. My dad was a plumber. And I graduated high school, and I planned on being a plumber. I was going to go through this apprenticeship program, but it takes time to get in it. And the age was an issue when I first got out of high school. I had to wait a year. So I went to Springfield Technical Community College. I signed up for classes, and I had a lot of autonomy, a lot of freedom to do it the way I wanted to. So I put everything on, all 5 classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, thinking that was a brilliant move. And some of you probably say, yeah, that is a brilliant move. All the rest of the week you have off and you're free. But to me, it ended up becoming a bit of a nightmare. I felt I'd be exhausted at the end of Tuesday and Thursday. 5 classes back to back, almost 8 hours of listening to lectures and doing exercises and things like that was pretty exhausting. And then the days in between, I almost needed to be kind of decompress and stay away from it a little bit. And I tend to put all the assignments and homework on that Sunday and Monday night. And it was a pretty draining experience. And I felt a huge disconnect. I was, for lack of a better way of saying, I was kind of lonely at the community college, didn't have friends going there. I felt like I really wasn't maybe community college or any college type student. I was a blue collar kind of kid, and I wanted to go on to become a tradesman. And so I felt alienated, and I didn't understand why classes like anthropology and psychology and sociology and English Comp 1 were going to be somehow appropriate to my career in the future. The only one I thought that would be beneficial would be the math courses I had to take, because that definitely related to becoming a plumber. Well, needless to say, I was feeling more and more alienated as the semester went on, and I remember papers were starting to become due, and probably no different than me, my professors were somewhat vague. Hey, I want you to write a 5-page paper related to the topics in sociology or psychology, something of your choice that bears on the course. And that intimidated me greatly. I didn't write a lot of papers in high school, didn't really know what the professor really wanted. And so anxiety started building up during that period of the semester, probably a little after halfway, if you will. And I was getting burnt out those Tuesday and Thursday classes, and I was getting more and more anxious about really feeling like I didn't belong there. And I still remember I took an exam, and I think the class was anthropology, and I thought I studied really, really hard. I hadn't missed any classes up to that day, perfect attendance. I thought I was a fairly diligent student in terms of trying to absorb the material. And I took an exam and I did okay, a C plus or a B minus, but I was really disappointed on one section of the test, and I really didn't feel like the material that I was studying had any bearing on those test questions. And I remember the professor at the end of class handing back the test. Hey, at the end of class, I'm going to save 10 or 15 minutes. Come on up and speak to me if you have some issues. So I'm very shy by nature. It may not show, but I am. And I was very intimidated by that. But I said, I'm going to muster up the strength. I'm going to go talk to the professor about what I did poorly on. And I went up and the professor goes, oh, you're one of those students, didn't do well in this one section of the exam. And he goes, that was all based upon the suggested readings in the syllabus. And I remember, and I wasn't trying to be rude or flippant, but I said, well, I thought those were suggested, like they would kind of bolster our understanding of material, but because they're in a test, they really required materials, aren't they? And I always remember the professor, maybe in a defensive posture, maybe it'd be genuinely funny, said, well, the next time someone makes a suggestion that's your professor, you should follow it. And some other students that were overhearing the conversation laughed, and I laughed to be, I don't know, to save face, I guess. But I was humiliated. I was very, very offended and humiliated. And I left the class that day very disaffected, from the experience. And I went to the next class, and the sociology professor says, "Hey, don't forget next week I want your little bit of an outline or your thesis statement about what your paper is going to be for sociology." And I was like, "What the heck am I doing? I don't know how to write a paper. I don't know how to find a topic. I don't really know how to do research." And so I was feeling pretty glum at the end of that Thursday. And I went home, and Friday morning I came down with symptoms of the flu. I got very, very sick. And I still like this to this day. I don't like missing classes. I don't like not showing up for appointments and things of that nature. Just a fetish, if you will. And I can remember getting so sick over the weekend that following Tuesday, I just couldn't go to class. I was just way too sick. And that made me feel even more sense of alienation from the school. And I missed Thursday as well. I was deathly ill. And I remember Friday morning, we didn't have email, we didn't have web pages or anything like that. I'm pretty old. Everything was done through the paper, traditional mail, and we had mail slots at the college actually, but they give sort of office information that we distributed that way as well, and billboards and things of that nature. But I remember getting a notice in the mail telling me to sign up for the spring classes in a couple of weeks, and that the following Monday would be the last day to withdraw from classes without getting a grade. And all of a sudden, I thought I had the escape hatch, if you will. And that Monday morning, feeling better, I went down to Springfield Technical Community College, and I withdrew from all my classes so I wouldn't get a grade. We got this thing called a W, which means you just withdrew from all your classes. And boy, did I feel great for about a week. I was so relieved. I'm out of this institution I don't belong in. I'm not college material. I'm not smart enough. I'm not academically gifted, I didn't think. And I left. And I felt really good for about a week or two. And then I felt a real sense of remorse and regret. And I didn't even tell my parents. And of course, my father, who always saw me as transparent or knew everything that I was doing without me being aware how he knew something was wrong. And he asked me what happened. And I said, I withdrew from school. It wasn't for me. I'm going to be a plumber, Dad, just like you, down the road, and all that kind of stuff. And he was very supportive, but I could tell he was, I don't want to say disappointed, but he was concerned about the decision I made. And I really fell into a pretty big rut. And I remember my friends coming home from college and telling them I dropped out. And I wasn't working. I didn't even have a part-time job at the time. So I just basically stayed up late at night and slept late into the mornings and didn't do a heck of a lot for probably 6 weeks. Put on a lot of weight during that period of time. Didn't hang out with my friends, kind of became a bit cloistered and away from everybody. And I felt really crappy. And I felt greater doubt about myself than I ever had in my life. But then they had these mini semesters. We have them at the Mount too, where they have the 7-week half class. I didn't go back in January. Didn't go back to the Springfield Technical College in January. I went back in March. They had these mini semesters. I got another flyer in the mail saying, "Hey, accelerate your degree, fill in a class, maybe you have some missing time, mostly night school classes then, that were these 7.5-week program classes. And I said, you know what, I'm going to take one class. I'm going to see if I can do it. I'm going to take English Comp and learn how to be a better writer. And I went 3 or 4 nights a week because it was intensive other than the 7.5 weeks. And I had a really good, demanding professor. And I stuck through it, and she was very supportive, a tough grader. I think I got a B or a B minus, and I really poured my all into it. But she told me she saw a lot of growth in me and made me feel better about my experience, and I felt a kinship to her, if you will. And so that summer, I took another class where I took English Comp 2 there and did even better, B plus or an A minus. And then I went back full time in the fall and felt a sense of redemption. And I always, throughout all of my education career, felt those feelings of anxiety that I didn't belong, that I wasn't capable, that I was going to fail. That feeling never left me, but I managed to learn coping skills and asking for help and not being afraid to ask for clarity on assignments. And that's, I guess, the message I want to give you. Don't ever be afraid to reach out, that you don't understand an assignment, that you need perhaps to discuss a deadline because there's family issues or work issues or health issues. I'll work with you, and I really want you to succeed, and I want to help you through the process. I don't want you to do what I did and run away and let failure be your answer. Let's get through the semester together and know that I want to really support you through that process. And that brings me to the class. These classes are what we call asynchronous, meaning that you go into the Blackboard shell, you'll see the syllabus, you'll see this welcoming video, you'll see the homework assignments. Not all of them are always revealed. It depends on which class you're in. Sometimes I put them all out there, and they're out there for you to see for the entire semester. Sometimes I have them launch every week, so you don't get too far in advance. And then you have the opportunity to look at the work, see what's expected of you, and you click on the homework assignment, and a portal will open up. Most of you know this. Maybe you don't. If you don't, I'll walk you through it. If you have any questions, you give me a call, shoot me an email. I'll work with you how to do it. But you submit your homework assignments or your writing assignments, whatever they are. And the same with the quizzes. When a quiz becomes due, it'll appear maybe a week before it's due, and you'll have a window, a period of time, maybe 10 days or 5 days or 3 days, whatever I decide I think is appropriate, and you can tackle that quiz during that period of time. So there's no set time you actually have to be online with me or with your cohorts in the class. It's asynchronous, meaning you do it within certain windows of time frames that are available to you. Navigating through Blackboard is mostly intuitive. I urge you to play with it. Look at the menu on the side. Click on the different icons and go through it. And when issues come up, don't be afraid to reach out. I want to help you. I am not going to be, there's no such thing as a stupid question. I'm not offended by questions. I want to help you succeed. And sometimes it's as simple as, I can't find what you want me to do for homework assignment number 1. And then I'll walk you through it. Well, you got to click on the assignment folder twice. You'll see what I want you to do, answer certain questions from a certain chapter, or reflect on a certain policy question I've asked about something. And I try to frame it so there's some structure to it, so you know not to go too crazy. 150 words to 250 words, keep it within that frame, and answer the following concepts, or try to address the following concepts within this area to give you some guidance. Some of you will freak out over assignments and say, I don't know what Korman wants. Jim, that's me, Korman, wants on this assignment. Don't be afraid to reach out for clarification. And if you are way off the bat, I'm not going to destroy you and say, oh, you got an F on this assignment. I'm going to say, hey, that wasn't really what I'm looking for. I'm looking more for something like this. It was my lack of clarity in the assignment. Let's take another stab at it and take another opportunity to get it right. And then there are also sometimes things on Blackboard that are erroneous, meaning they'll say, hey, I want you to read this article I posted, and I want you to write a little reflection of what your thoughts are on it, 200 to 300 words or something like that. And then you'll be looking and say, I don't see any article you posted because I forgot to post the article, or I posted the assignment, but the link to my article or my video is flawed. It's a broken link or something like that. Don't be afraid to ever reach out and say, hey, I don't know what's going on with this. I can't understand what he wants. It's not visible. And things like that do happen. So don't ever be afraid to reach out. And in addition, when you take a quiz or a test and say you get a couple questions wrong, and you'll be able to, after you take a test, you can go back and look at the questions you got wrong and what the right responses are for portions of it, the multiple choice, the true, false. The essays I have to grade manually and put in some responsive discussion of where you were strong or where you were weak on it. But sometimes the students say, oh, I got number 17 wrong. I thought I really had it. I thought that I picked the correct multiple options correctly and I don't know why I got it wrong, don't be afraid to reach out and want to discuss with me. Sometimes I actually put the answer key wrong and you did get it correct. So that's the kind of dialogue I want. I want us to learn. It's not getting things right or wrong necessarily through the process. It's in the end that you master the material and get to know it fairly competently is the goal. I'm 15 minutes into the video and I thought this was going to be 5 minutes. But I think you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. I want you to feel welcome. I want you to feel safe academically, emotionally, and physically, although it's online. And I want you to feel welcome. You're amongst friends. And I want you to feel that sense of this is a team effort. And I'm hopefully going to be the proctor or the guidepost to help you get to the finish line to master the material. There's a lot of independent learning when it comes to a Blackboard course. There just is. Unlike other professors do it too, I do put up video lectures of what I think is salient from a chapter or something like that to supplement for what it would be like if you were in a traditional brick and mortar class on the Gardner campus or Leominster campus or something like that. I ask you to look at those. Those are kind of required. I mean, I can't force you to look at them. And sometimes I also put up supplemental videos, meaning I found something really good that's a good documentary or a good discussion by other faculty or professionals in some area that I think, boy, they did it a lot better than I ever did it. And I'll throw it up there as another option for you to look at things. But the most important thing of all is if you're not getting a concept and you want to know it better, reach out with an email and we can set up a time to discuss it. We can meet at the office or we can talk via email about, a better understanding of some concept. Other than that, I am very approachable. You'll see it on my syllabus. I give my cell phone because I am often off campus in different locations. It's my business line as well. Don't be afraid to call. I do tend to like an email first to say, hey, let's set up a time to call because it makes it more, with my schedule, it makes it easier for me to schedule you in, for lack of a better way of saying it. And don't ever feel you're bothering me. And this is the main thrust of what I want to say is sometimes a student will email me and say, hey, I was doing the assignment and I saw that there were 3 questions or 3 prompts. I did the first 2 and I missed the third because it went down to the next page. And I already submitted the assignment and I can't resubmit now. I screwed up. I hope I don't get an F on this thing. What can I do? Because, well, I'll see that and I'll say, oh, that's not a problem. I'll just have the student email me the rest of the assignment and I can put it together and Frankenstein it into one assignment and I'll grade it, no problem. But then I won't say that to you because I'm in the midst of something else because I know it's not a huge issue, but you haven't gotten a response. There's where I want you to follow up and not be afraid to say, hey, I emailed you yesterday or I emailed you 2 days ago. Did you get the email? What's going on? Is there any way we can fix this problem? And then I'll say, oh, geez, I gotta get back to Jane or Joe or whoever it is, and try to remedy those kinds of situations when they come. And sometimes a student will be in the middle of a test. You'll have an internet outage or something like that, and then you want to go back in and finish, and you can't. I can potentially reset that for you. Things like that. We can solve problems, but the only way to solve a problem is for me to know there is one. And I hate those little cliches, but sometimes they're good. And one of them is the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Don't be afraid to squeak and let me know you need some help and some guidance through the process. Now going back to the last final little pep talk thing about community college. I have an associate's degree eventually from a stick. It took me 4 years, the year I dropped out. The next year I took a year of general studies, and then I wanted to study history and political science. I took every class I could, but I eventually majored in criminal justice because people convinced me that was the most related to those topics. I'm not sure it was, but anyways, I ended up getting an associate's degree in criminal justice. Then I went on to Springfield College and UMass. I was bouncing back and forth between UMass Amherst, between those 2 colleges, and ended up with a history degree from Springfield College. And then I went to Western New England University Law School, right there, also in Springfield. I lived with my parents. A lot of people say, I can't wait to move out of my parents' house. I love living in my parents' house. I lived in the basement. It's wonderful. I had good parents, got along with them great. But anyways, I got my Juris Doctorate degree from Western New England College, and I passed the bar that summer and became a lawyer. And eventually a teaching opportunity came up. But I always wanted to teach. That was always my goal, and dreams come true. And I always wanted to teach at a community college specifically. And it's funny how it all came around in 22, 23 years ago, and I started teaching at the Mount. And it was a wonderful transition. While at the Mount, I went back to Worcester State University, where my law practice is primarily, but also I have some familiarity because I go through that area. And I was practicing law for a law firm before I went on my own as a solo practitioner. I went to Worcester State University and got a master's degree in history, and I focused on what I consider political history, but constitutional history. United States constitutional history is my passion. Passion sounds a little bit goofy, but it's my focus. And I still think of all the degrees I have and all the college experience I have. The thing that was most important to me and the most valuable, and I believe it's free for most of you, was my community college experience. It taught me how to be a student. It taught me how to think critically. It taught me how not to just go to class and listen to lectures and read the chapter once. It taught me how to take a deeper dive and to realize sometimes that I don't really get this. I need to do it again. I need to read it a second time or a third time, or maybe even I need to go and see an academic, a tutor on some areas. And it's not how you get there, it's that you get there. And so sometimes I kind of got nerdy about it, where I would even go, I'd look at and I would see the references in the textbook to further material, because sometimes I think the book did a lousy job or very superficial job on something I was interested in or wanted to know more about. And I would go look at collateral sources. I'd read more information in an area because I wanted to be competent. I didn't want to just speculate at what something meant or knew about. And that's what STIC gave me. The community college experience taught me to be a critical thinker. And I think that degree is more important than any other in my experience. And I hope you value and come to realize that your experience at the Mount will be a great foundation for whatever you do, whether you go into a career afterwards or you go and continue your education further on. Otherwise, don't be afraid to reach out. There may be an opportunity during the course of the semester to do a couple of field trips if you guys are into it. That way we get to know each other, because we're not going to really get to know each other the way we should in a traditional brick and mortar class with this online experience. But one of them is the Gardner District Court. We often do a trip because Judge Goldstein, the presiding judge there, often invites a class in each semester of all of our classes. He also teaches at the Mount online, and just to watch the court's operation. The other thing we often do is we take a trip to Boston to the Supreme Judicial Court to watch some oral arguments, or the Boston State House, the State House located in Boston, where we look at the legislature and the governor's office, and right across is Suffolk Superior Court. And sometimes you think of the three branches of government, they're all right there in terms of the state level. And there are other opportunities for things like that. And if students have ideas or desires to do it, we'll certainly consider those moving forward. But otherwise, welcome to the semester. Don't be afraid to reach out and say hello or ask questions, any questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. And I'll never think poorly of you for asking them. In fact, I think that takes courage. And I think you deserve a great deal of credit when you do look for clarification and or instructions on how to get things done right. Otherwise, hey, take it easy. I'm sorry this went so long. Hope I didn't bore too many people to death. And otherwise, be well.